so this is section 4.1. We are starting chapter 4. And chapter 4 is all about triangles. So our learning targets today are I will be able to classify triangles, which this is not brand new information. You've seen some of this in middle school. The other learning target is I will be able to use the triangle sum and the triangle exterior angle theorems. So let's get going. All right, so this slide was already up for those of you who were at home. We have some new vocabulary words. One of them being triangle, because this chapter is all about triangles. A triangle is a polygon, poly meaning many, and tri is 3, so it has 3 sides. So a polygon with 3 sides, and I gave a little picture. We name the triangle with the triangle symbol in front. So I would read this as triangle ABC. I could also name this triangle BCA, or triangle BAC, or triangle BCA. Oh, I already said BCA. Or triangle CAB, CAB. So there's different ways depending on what your letters are. So there's more than one way. I usually do it alphabetically just because, I don't know, it just feels better for me. So make sure that when you're naming your triangle, you do have the little triangle symbol. We are going to be talking about some other polygons today. Like if we have a quadrilateral, we can just name it with the 4 vertices. So depending on what kind of polygon you're talking about. But this, we're focusing mainly on triangles in chapter 4. And this is our last chapter for this trimester. All right, interior angles. Interior means on the inside. So we have 3 angles on the inside of a triangle. So those are the ones highlighted in green. Exterior angles are on the outside. Notice we have more exterior angles to deal with. And we're going to be talking about the exterior angle theorem today. So we have to be knowing what we're talking about when we say exterior angles. It does not include the angles that are vertical angles to the interior angles, but all the rest of them. Again, I'm hoping everybody had time to put those in their notes while we had lunch going on. If not, I do post these notes and you can get the rest of those once I get those posted to Schoology today. All right, so we are going to, one of our learning targets is being able to classify triangles. So there are 2 different ways to classify them, and we're going to classify them at the same time. One of them is by classifying by sides. So we look at, do we have any sides that are congruent to each other? If we don't have any that are congruent, we call that a scalene triangle. And I think this is the one that most people have trouble remembering, scalene. And that means that none of the sides are the same length. And so we notice there aren't any little tick marks. So nothing is the same. Sometimes they will do it with tick marks. And if they aren't any tick marks, then you know that they're not the same length. Sometimes they will just give you numbers representing the lengths of the sides. And if they're all different, then you know it's scalene. Isosceles means you have at least 2 sides that are congruent. And that's the very specific way to define isosceles triangles, because technically if you have 3 sides, you could say it's isosceles, but we like to give it the most specific name. So we're going to say 2 congruent sides. And notice we can tell they're congruent because of the tick marks. And so we would call that isosceles. And then finally, equilateral where lateral means side, we have all sides the same, so it's an equilateral triangle. So that's how to classify triangles by sides. Then we also can classify them by angles. Classifying by angles, we have 4 different ways to classify them. So, and that's again by looking at the type of angles that are in there. If we have all 3 of our angles, the interior angles, acute, so tell me what is acute? We learned this before, yes. They're little cute tiny ones. So those are the ones that are less than 90 degrees. We learned that last chapter. If you have all 3 of them less than 90 degrees, then you know that you have an acute triangle. A right triangle means you have one angle that's 90 degrees. And you can tell that by either the little right degree marking, or sometimes they'll just put in there that it's 90 degrees. So you'll see that in another example that we'll have later. An obtuse triangle has one obtuse angle, and there's no way to get more than one obtuse angle, because obtuse means it's bigger than 90 degrees. And if you had 2 that were bigger than 90 degrees, it's not going to be a triangle anymore, because, and we'll see that when we get to the triangle sum theorem that we talk about on the next slide. And then equiangular. So some people get confused between the equilateral. Lateral means sides. Angular means angles. So equiangular is when you have all 3 angles that are congruent. And I will come back to this slide in a minute after we talk about the next slide. So make sure you have all of these vocab words and a picture in your notes. So again, acute triangle, all of them are less than 90 degrees. One is going to equal 90 degrees in the right triangle. One will be, one angle is greater than 90 degrees. And then the equiangular, I will come back for that one. Oops. All right, the next slide. The triangle sum theorem. The triangle sum theorem states that the measure of the interior angles equals 180 degrees. So in order to form a triangle, all of those angles have to equal 180 degrees. So we take the measure of angle A plus the measure of angle B plus the measure of angle C, we add them up and it equals 180. So you're going to be solving some problems where they will either give you 2 out of the 3 angles and they'll say, what's the third one? And so you'll be able to do x plus angle equals 180. Or eventually we'll get to some other problems where you'll need to know that the interior angles are 180, and there'll be different ways that we solve those. So let's think about the equiangular triangle from the last slide. If you have a triangle where all your angles are equal, and you know that together they add up to 180 degrees, what is the measure of each of the equiangular angles, or the angles in an equiangular triangle? Yes, so let's go back and look at this, and we can actually label this. Because all of these together in here, oh, and by the way, notice that they labeled those angles as being congruent with the little angle markings. And they could have done one little arc or two, but that just signifies that all of those are the same. So if all of these together equal 180 degrees, and you have 3 of them that are equal, all of them are going to equal 60 degrees, because 60 plus 60 plus 60 is your 180. So that is something that will help you in solving some of your some of the homework problems that you'll see. All right, let's go back to this. So they all add up to 180 degrees. Now, maybe that's not a shock to you guys. Maybe you've seen that before. Maybe you haven't seen the exterior angle theorem before. And if you don't want to be writing all of the words down, you can at least draw your picture with your equation. The exterior angle theorem says that if you have an exterior angle, and notice that the exterior angle forms a straight line with the side of that triangle. So here is my exterior angle. The exterior angle is the same as when you add the other 2 interior angles that are not right next to that exterior angle. So you have to kind of go across to the other side of the triangle to get those other 2. They call them non-adjacent. Remember, adjacent means right next to each other. If it's non-adjacent, which means it can't be right next to it, it has to be on the other side of the triangle. So drawing a picture like this and marking that. Now your exterior angle is not always going to show up straight across like this. They could draw a triangle like this, and you could have your exterior angle right here. And then here would be your other angles. So angle 1 equals angle 2 plus 3. So depending on where that straight line is, but it just is part of, it's like an extension of the side of the triangle. They just kept drawing the line. Somebody got messy and they just kept going. That's where your exterior angle is. And had they instead of given you this angle, they could have given you this angle here. So it just depends on how they draw the triangle and that extension of the side. I'll give you another minute to finish that. Another good way to remember that 2 on the inside equals 1 on the outside. As long as you're picking the correct 2 that are on the inside. Remember, they have to be on the other side of the triangle from that exterior angle. So that's the information, the new material we are learning for 4.1. And now we're going to be practicing some problems with this information. And again, if you want to go back later today, actually, I'm going to try really hard when I'm in school to get the notes posted before I leave. So I save it as a PDF and I'll post it. So it should be done for sure by 12:30 today. The video sometimes takes a few minutes to get like updated and sent to me, but for sure when I get home, that should show up in my inbox. And I will post the class video also. All right, so let's look at some problems. Hopefully you can see these. So they're asking us to classify, and you will have, these are 4 problems taken straight from Delta Math, which you will have as homework for this afternoon. And hopefully you can see these. Maybe I can make them a little bit bigger. All right, so the first one, they're asking us to classify it by sides and angles. And the problems in Delta Math are going to be multiple choice. And hopefully it's multiple choice, not multiple guess. So don't just be guessing. So we want to look at what kind of, how do we classify it according to the sides? And remember with sides, so go back in your notes, we have scalene, we have isosceles, and we have equilateral. We have 3 choices. So with this first diagram, looking at the sides, is it scalene, isosceles, or equilateral? What do you notice about the side length? So we're not looking at the degrees inside. We're looking at the side lengths. Do you notice anything? Anyone at home? And again, yes. So thank you, Emma. If you are at home, remember, I'm not always going to be looking at the chat. I'd love to hear your voice over the intercom or the speaker. So Emma said she noticed that 2 of them are the same. They're both 5.65. So if they're both the same, how do we classify that by sides? What's the name of that if you have 2 that are the same? Thank you. So that would be isosceles. And then they want us to also name it by the angles. So I have 45, 90, and 45. I had 4 different ways to classify according to angles. I had acute, I have right, I have obtuse, and I have equiangular. Which one of those 4 do you notice? Correct. And they say it with 90 degrees, or they could have had it with a little 90-degree marking. So this we would classify as an isosceles right triangle. So you try this second one. And I'll try to make this a little bit bigger. There we go. And while you're doing that, I will make this one bigger. All right, what does somebody notice about the second one? Let's look at the sides. Do we have any sides that are congruent to each other? Yes. How many of them? 2. So I can say that for sure it's isosceles. And then how do I name it by the angles? I have 50, 80, and 50. Acute. Because all of them are acute angles. They're all less than 90. So we would call that an isosceles acute triangle. Let's look at the third one. Show me with your fingers how many sides are congruent. 0, 1, 2, or 3? 3. Very good. So if they're all 3 the same, we would call that equilateral. What do you notice about the angles? "60, 60, 60." And what do we call that? Equiangular. Now, we will learn this soon. I don't think it's this week, though. That if you have an equilateral triangle, it's also equiangular. So in Delta Math, they won't give you both of these. We don't say it's an equilateral, equiangular triangle because they're always going to be both. If it's one, it's both. So they'll most likely say equilateral. So if there's only one choice in Delta Math, that's the one to pick. All right, and then finally on the last triangle, show me with your fingers how many sides are congruent. 0, 1, 2, or 3. Very good, 0. So if it's 0, what did we call it? Yes, and I think scalene is one of those, I'm trying to find a different, let's try a different pretty color, whoops. So none of them are the same. So it's called scalene. And I think scalene is the one that most people forget the name of. So make sure that's in your notes because you can use your notes on your quizzes and tests. And then what do we notice about the angles? 23, 111, 46. Which one of the 4 would we do? Acute, right, obtuse, or equilateral, equiangular, obtuse. There you go. So you will have some of these in Delta Math for homework, but they also will be on the quiz and test. So make sure, and this is where we do this the first section, and then by the time you get to the test, people are not doing the best on this. So make sure this is in your notes and refer back. All right, so now we're going to use the triangle sum theorem, or sometimes they call it the interior angle theorem. Knowing that all 3 of the angles need to add up to how much? 180. So they all are going to equal 180 degrees, all of them together. So we can say x plus 108 plus 29 equals 180. So this is where you do all 3 of them equal to 180. So go ahead and solve that. And what do you get for x? 43. So that would be how you solve these. And there will be a few of those in Delta Math. Now, those are the level 1 Delta Math ones. So those you could probably just have a calculator and you may not need to write out an equation. There'll also be ones like this. For those of you who are sitting toward the back, let's make it a little bit bigger. This is just snipped straight from Delta Math. This angle is 4x plus 7. This angle is 39. This has a right angle marking. How would you solve this problem? And they're asking us to solve for x. Sometimes they'll ask you to solve for x, and then they'll say, what is the measure of angle A? This one doesn't have any labels on our triangle, so we wouldn't be able to do that. Can somebody tell me how they would set that up? Anyone want to share how they set their equation up? In the classroom, or if you're at home, feel free to unmute. What do we know about these angles in the triangle? What do we know about all of those? Yes, all of them equal 180. So let's take them and start listing them out. So one of my angles is 4x plus 7. Another angle is 39 degrees. Can I do this? No. What did I forget? I just did 2 angles added together. I need all 3 of them. So this is the one thing that most people, if they have a 90 degrees down there as one of their angles, they forget to add the 90 degrees. So make sure when you are setting this up, you're making sure that you get all 3 angles added together. And then we can simplify by combining like terms. So I have, let's do this. I only have one x term on the left, and I have all of those that are like terms. So let's add 7 plus 39 plus 90, which gives me what? 136? No, 146. So this would be, oh no, 40 plus 90 is 130 plus 6. Did I do that right? It's Monday, you guys. Did I get that right? Is that what you got? I always find it interesting how people do mental math, because going through my formative years through high school and even college, it took me, there was something that I went to as an adult and not as a math teacher. I went as a parent, and they were doing some thing showing like some new math curriculum or something. And somebody was up there talking about this new math curriculum and how people add and subtract differently. And my eyes were like, I never thought of doing it that way. And then I I was a parent for a long time. I was a math teacher, then I was a parent. And before I came back to teaching, I started tutoring math and working one-on-one with students, and they would say things out loud. I'm like, that's brilliant. And so I've kind of changed the way I do mental math from when I was back in high school. So you still can learn. But I don't always get it right, you guys, so don't worry. All right, so we're going to subtract 136 to both sides, and that would give me 44. And how many people got x equals 11? Did you do that? Thumbs up? Nice. So sometimes you'll have algebraic expressions for the angle markings. Notice that they're in parentheses with a little degree mark. You don't need to keep the parentheses or the degree when you put it in your equation. Sometimes they'll have more than one algebraic expression. So just add all three together and then solve your equation. Sometimes in Delta Math, they're not going to give you the picture. So then you have to draw your own picture. And they're telling you that it's triangle HIJ. So draw a triangle. It doesn't matter what kind of triangle you draw. I actually just went into Delta Math, and when they show the solution, I just looked at what kind of triangle they usually drew. So that's what I did. It doesn't matter how you label it. I usually start here and go this way, but I think Delta Math goes like this. But it doesn't matter where you put your H, your I, or your J. What does matter is then finding that angle H is 8x minus 6. Angle I is 2x minus 4. And angle J is x minus 8. Now, some of you might be able to even solve this without drawing a triangle. But make sure that you're able to label a triangle, because on the test, sometimes we like you to like drag and drop to label things. So just get used to doing it sometimes so that you are familiar with which algebraic expression goes with which angle. They want us to find the measure of angle H. So when we're done, they want to know what is this angle right here. So I can add all three together. Let me color code it. So angle H is 8x minus 6. Angle I is 2x minus 4. Angle J is x minus 8. And I know that needs to be equal to 180 degrees. Again, find your like term. So go ahead, and I want you to solve it. Practice solving. You will get points for, yeah, we don't see your work, but there will be some questions that will ask you to set it up, or which is the correct equation. You will get points for selecting the correct equation. And this isn't new. You've kind of seen what kind of questions we use in geometry, where there'll be drop downs that'll say, what correct equation would you do to set this up? So go ahead and solve. I notice that this is a 1x. And then my other like terms are right there. So if you're at home, try not to peek at the screen until you're all done. If you're in the classroom, try and work this without getting extra help by peeking. At least here I can do this, and you guys can't maybe see what I'm doing, although then I can't see what I'm doing either. So that should be what, 18? So if you got x equals 18, good job. Now are we done? Can we just go to the next problem? No, make sure that you're looking at what they want you to find. And this said, find the measure of angle H. So this is going to tell me that I need to plug it in to 8x minus 6, and my x is 18. So you'll need to calculate that in order to get the correct answer in Delta Math. So we have 138 degrees. So make sure that you are reading exactly what they want you to find. And then we have one more slide. So those last two slides were using the triangle sum theorem. We're going to do one slide of the exterior angle theorem. And here are two examples that you could see from Delta Math. Make sure that you expect some problems like this on the quiz and test that actually have algebraic expressions. I don't think there were any of those in Delta Math for us to pick from. So they want us to solve for x. Let's look at the first one. I'm going to first notice that I have my exterior angle. Remember that we had 2 on the inside equals 1 on the outside. Which 2 on the inside are we going to be using? Yes, the 90 degrees and the x. So I can set this up, 2 on the inside, so 90 plus x equals the 1 on the outside. And so what do you get for your x? 50 degrees. Does anybody see another way to solve this? If you didn't know the exterior angle theorem, or if you forget that, and you're taking like the ACT next year, and they give you a problem like this, and you're like, oh, dang, I forgot my geometry. Is there another way you could have done this problem? What do you mean by add them all? What would you be adding? So you're saying 140 and 90 and x? Make sure that if you're adding all of them and setting them equal to 180, that you're just adding the interior ones, 140 is on the outside. But how would we know what this interior angle here is? Yes, so remember we learned what kind of angles are those? They form a straight line that's a linear pair. So these should add up to 180, these two right here. So if I know what this one is, I can subtract to find out that this one is 40. So then I could have done x plus 90 plus 40 equals 180. So sometimes you're able to do that if that outside, the exterior angle is a number value instead of an algebraic expression. So just so you know, there's more than one way to do that. With that said, how do you solve the second one? I do have an exterior angle, right? This is an exterior angle. What two angles do I add up to equal that? I would need the two non-adjacent ones. Do we know what this one is? We don't. So we have to go back to the drawing board. How are we going to solve for x? What is that? Anytime in geometry, it doesn't matter whether we are in the triangle unit or in the quadrilateral unit. Back in chapter 1, when we learned this, anytime you see a linear pair, they add up to how much? 180. Linear pair and vertical angles, you can always, always, always use. Linear pair add up to 180. What do we know about vertical angles? What? Don't tell me you forgot. Yes, they're equal to each other. That you will use all the time, so please don't forget that. All right, so I could say x plus 72 equals 180, or I could just take 180 minus 72, because sometimes you see that easier. So those are the types of problems you are going to see in Delta Math for homework today. Besides homework, we also have an activity, and because you guys got shorted 20 minutes, this is also something I would like you to do. You can start it now, but you can do this at home. There is a, let me get this, should be here somewhere. Oh, I think I lost it. Here it is. So there's a 4.1 triangle sum activity link that is in today's Schoology folder. If you click on that, you'll get to this slide. And as soon as I move my slide, then you'll be able to get the whole maze. You're going to start in the upper corner. It's the upper left corner. The first problem's already been done for you. This is using the triangle sum. All three angles added together equals 180. You can use your calculator. You don't have to show your work, but there is the first problem shown here. So if you get stuck, you can look at that. Your next one, so 54 is the answer. So you'd have to look at, this one was 32, this was 54. That means this is the path you're going to take. So number 2 would be this next one here. And then depending on what that answer is, you're either going to go right or you're going to go down to the next problem. So go ahead, and I just opened up the maze for you. It shouldn't take you very long to do that. Whoops, what did I just do? All right. So make sure that you are, everybody should have then their own copy. I've got 9 students who are in already. Go ahead and press that link and start. You do need to show your answer path. So by coloring it in or showing arrows or something. So use the pen feature. I do have the answers here, so you can kind of see what my path was that I will post later. So go ahead and start doing that. And then I want you to finish that. There is an assignment where you can say, please post, check my activity in today's folder so I can give you the points for that in-class activity. And then the 4.1 Delta Math homework should already be showing up where you can go in and start doing that one also. And then there's a place for you to post your screenshot in Schoology. So those are the 2 things that you need to do for today. I highly recommend that you do not get behind in this chapter. This is our very last chapter of this trimester. And this, if you can stay on track with turning in assignments, all of them in on time, your grade will really boost. Not only because you'll get all the points for the assignments, but also because you will do better on your test. All right.